Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Mirror Talk. I really appreciate your presence here right now. And I would love to learn from your story because I was going through your website and I found your story very interesting. Dropping out of school and moving from Poland to Britain on a bus, like you drove for 27 hours because you couldn't buy the plane ticket. And now you have become one of the highest paid personal coaches in the UK also.
So unlike one of my favorite people in the world, in the history, Muhammad Ali, he was petrified, not just afraid of flying, he was petrified of flying, which is quite interesting given that he would face those scary dudes in the boxing ring, but then he was too scared to get on the plane. The reason I got on the bus is because I couldn't afford the plane ticket, not because I was afraid of flying, right?
Yeah.
And especially given that was 17 years ago, so 2005, there was no Ryanair, EasyJet, Wizz Air back in the day. So you were either flying with British Airways, Lufthansa, one of those guys, or nothing, or you took a bus if you couldn't afford like British Airways, So it's definitely one of those stories of starting with nothing and ending up with a little bit more than nothing over the course of a decade or so.
Yes. And how was that, transition for you? Like, the moment before you jumped on a bus to move to Britain, like, did you know anyone here anyone there in the UK, for example, or you were just driving towards uncertainty?
Yeah, so first of all, I came here with my girlfriend at the time, which was useful. So I wasn't completely alone. And even when we got to London, we weren't completely alone because we had a couple of friends. I had a couple of friends already living in London. And it actually allowed us to come to London in the first place because all the money that we had was just enough to buy 2 one-way tickets to London, right? Yes. So if it wasn't for the couple of my friends, Polish friends, who were already in London, who basically said, hey, listen, why don't you guys come in here? We're gonna lend you money, you're gonna start working, and then you're gonna pay us back. Yeah. Right, when you can. And that's exactly what happened. So if it wasn't for them, we couldn't come because what would we do? That because we had no money, like we had no money.
Yeah.
So we literally came without a penny. So yeah, I knew her, obviously she was my girlfriend, and I knew those guys, this guy and his girlfriend at the time, now wife. So it's definitely one of the biggest acts of kindness, or one of the biggest acts of kindness that I've experienced in my life, who contributed to like determining my my life, right? Because if it wasn't for them, and it's not like they were rich or anything like that, they were just doing like shitty jobs at the time. But they had just enough money to like be able to help us out, which I will never forget. And yeah, there was an excitement. There was a little bit of fear of unknown. And it was funny because I'm from a big city in Poland, right? But as soon as I came to London, I realized that a big city in Poland is like a village comparing to London, right? So it's like, I'm used to being a big city, right? I am from a big city. But when you look at the like population, my city in Poland, the city I'm from, is more than 10 times smaller than London, right? When you look at the size, I don't know how many, but at least I would say London is 5 times bigger, right? And as you know, London is not just the capital of the UK, but it's like one of the most important, biggest
cities in the world.
In the world, right? It's not just like the biggest city here. It's like one of the most important cities in terms of like the financial industry, the culture, arts, like all sorts of things, right? Invention and you name it. So I was really excited, more than anything else, determined that I'm gonna find a way to become successful one way or another. Legally, that was It was one of the conditions, right?
That's good. Yes.
It wasn't a question of getting to the top or becoming successful at any cost. At any cost in terms of the hours I was willing to put in, the sacrifices I was willing to make. But yeah, like hurting anyone or doing anything illegal wasn't part of the plan. I think we can all agree I'm just a little bit too pretty to go to prison.
That's good. Yeah. And how was it like, for you to learn the language? Like, before you could only speak in Polish and you had to come all the way here, learn the language and do, legal jobs, like you said, also like legal jobs and avoid criminal activities.
If possible. Yeah. I did speak English when I came to London, very, very basic level. Very, very broken English, but I did speak English, right? So it's not like I came here without speaking English at all. I came here with speaking some English. If it wasn't for that, I definitely wouldn't get a job in retail. Maybe I could get a job somewhere on the construction side or something like that, which wasn't something that I was interested in. Doing any like labor intensive, like physically hard work, because yes, I didn't have any money. I could barely speak English, but I knew I wasn't stupid. I'm not saying everyone working in construction is stupid. That's not what I'm saying. But I knew that I could do more with myself. I could use my brain more than moving bricks on the building site, right? So the little English that I knew was enough for me to get a job in fashion retail. And it's the fashion retail that I spent the first 6 years of my life in London. And then I transitioned to personal coaching in 2011 at the age of 28.
Oh, that's good. And fashion retail was your first job ever? Like that was the first job ever you did?
Yes, like a first like real job. And because I was 22, like listen, I was so happy when they called me. I was in the bus, I remember, with my girlfriend when they called me saying that I was successful in that application, in that interview that I had, I think the day before. It was a job of a sales assistant in Zara. Right. And I was the happiest freaking kid on the planet. I was so happy because, we just came there, as I said before, no money, living off my friends, which they offered and I've accepted, but it's just not something I felt particularly comfortable with. And it was 3 weeks, I think, if I remember correctly, it was 3 weeks after we arrived that I had this interview and this phone call. So it wasn't like, we arrived, I was like, I'm here. And everybody said, Michael, would you like to work for us? You know?
Yeah.
So it took 3 weeks for me to get a job. It took, I think, maybe 4 weeks in total for my girlfriend to get a job. She was and still is to this day, a makeup artist. So I got a job in Zara as a sales assistant. She got a job as a makeup artist in like a chain brand as well. So we both started working, and slowly but surely we started paying off my friends. And then we moved out, and then we lived separately, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And I found something very fascinating. During your first job interview ever at Zara, the interviewing manager asked you how you saw yourself in the future in that company, and you smiled and told him that you see yourself doing his job, and 9 months later you were doing exactly his job. So
well remembered. So the exact words were, I did it with a finger like this, but with a smile on my face, right? So I wasn't like threatening him, I was just a kid. But he asked me, so one of he was like doing the interview, right? And one of the questions he asked me was like, how do you, which is the standard interview question, I suppose, right? So how do you see your future in this company? And I said, with a finger pointing at him, I said, I want your job as soon as possible. Like I had this like Godfather moment, I think. Sure enough, he laughed. And then, as you said, 9 months after this interview, I took over his position. So he got promoted to even higher role within the company. and they needed someone to replace him, and they picked me, and I was super happy, and it was such a fast promotion. They told me it was the fastest promotion in the history of Zara UK at the time, from someone to come in without any experience in retail to go from sales assistant to a manager in 9 months.
Wow. Well,
that was
at the age of 22, how were you able to, build up that confidence to speak with the interviewing manager at that point?
Yeah, so I would be lying if I said, because I suppose that would make my story even more interesting, if I said, hey, listen, I've been this fat kid that nobody liked, and I lost my virginity at the age of 25. Like, I've always been a confident kid. I've always been what you could say or refer to full of myself, right? I always believed in myself. Not at the level I believe in myself now, because now I am where I am after 16 years of personal development, right? But I've always been a confident person overall. There were parts of my life I wasn't particularly confident in, and I had to work on those parts, right? So it's not like I was, and I'm still not confident about every single area of life. Like, if you ask me to bungee jump, if you offer me 10,000 euros to bungee jump, I'll say, keep your money, I'm fine. If you offer me, if you offer me 20,000 euros to freaking skydive, I would say, no, I'm good, keep your money. So I'm afraid of certain things. It's like, hey, would you like to play with this spider, or would you like to play with this snake? No, I'm good with snakes and spiders. Like, I'm good. Yeah. Like in a Netflix show, if I see one, I'm fine. But like, so I'm not saying that I have no fears, right? And I'm not afraid of anything, right? But what I did do is I've addressed throughout my life, using the vehicle of personal development, I've addressed the fears that were getting in the way of me building the life that I wanted to build for myself. And I accepted the fears that have absolutely nothing to do with my lifestyle, because how often do I need to skydive? How often do I need to deal with snakes in central London? We don't have many snakes in here.
No.
Like, you need to go to the zoo to see a snake, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry about things like that, because I knew that those things will never be part of my life. The way I've envisioned my life, I knew those things will not be problematic for me. So I've only been looking at the things that were important to me, such as confidence with women, such as confidence in asking people for money for my service, right? Before that, in retail, confidence in asking for more money during job interviews, right? So coming back to your original question, my confidence was always there. Like, the overall confidence was always there from the young age. And I don't know if it's genetics, if it's upbringing, probably a combination of the two. Like, my father is a very confident person. My mother is like a normal person when it comes to confidence. She's not shy, but my father is definitely very confident, right? So probably I got it from my father, that sense of fearlessness, like that overall sense of fearlessness, while recognizing, as I said before, that even though I feel overall fearless when it comes to life, there are plenty of areas that I'm afraid of, or like I fear of. But at the same time, I don't care about it, because they are not part of those things do not affect the quality of my life.
Of your life, yeah.
Right? So I'm not gonna say to someone, hey, to make yourself more confident, go and jump off the plane. Not necessarily, because it's like, why? It's like, why would I want to do it? Oh, because you're afraid of it. Okay, so, but if I do that, there's gonna be another 5 things I'm afraid of. So shall I just spend my whole life doing the things I'm afraid of, even though they might have nothing to do with the kind of life I want to live? Well, if somebody thinks that, I disagree.
Yes. Wow, that's good. And did this confidence also help you to get your fast promotion towards becoming a manager, or what would you say also contributed to that fast promotion?
Yeah, so the number one thing, without a doubt, it wasn't even the confidence. Yes, the confidence and being naturally bossy, right? So they could quickly pick up on the fact that I'm naturally quite bossy. I've always been quite bossy, right? It's very easy for me to tell people what to do. It's less easy for me to not so much to hear, but for me to have other people telling me what to do, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I can do that. I'm coachable. I had coaches in the past, and they would tell you I'm coachable, but I picked my coaches. There were people I respected. Back in retail, there were bosses that I respected, and I had absolutely no problem taking directions from them. But if I don't respect you and you tell me what to do, I'm gonna probably tell you to fuck off, right? Which, if you work for yourself, you can get away with it, right? And I've done it, and I got away with it. If you work for somebody else, you obviously have to like control that part of you, otherwise you're probably not gonna stick around in a job for too long, right?
Yes.
So it didn't take me a long time to figure out that employment wasn't for me, that I'm not an employable person, right? That I need to work for myself. It took me a little bit longer to figure out what is it that I could do, and that thing happened to be coaching. But coming back to your original question, the number one reason as to why this promotion could happen as fast as it did was I just worked super hard. I just worked super hard because, remember, I was really determined to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, because number one, I felt the obligation to pay back my friends. They never gave me a deadline. They had enough money for themselves. They were living a simple lives. There was no pressure. That I've never felt any pressure from them, right? It's like, hey, we need our money back as soon. I've never felt it, but it doesn't matter. I put the pressure on myself, right?
Yes.
So I was basically asking my managers to give me as many hours as possible. I was asking for overtime. I was always there, always on time, first one to come, last one to leave, never complaining about anything. To begin with, even if I wanted to complain, it would be hard because I couldn't speak the language very well. So before you start complaining, better learn the language first in which you want to complain in, right? So, but no, like I'm not a complainer by nature, but my work ethic was number one reason, and number two, probably that confidence slash and ease in which I've always found telling people what or like managing people or leading people, telling people what to do, basically. In a nutshell, hey, listen, can you do that? Can you do this? Can you help me out with this? And it's that's what leadership is in a way, right? Like you need to like sell people on an idea, and you need other people to help you make your vision reality, whether it's something at such a micro level, like some tasks that you can imagine being done in a retail environment, or creating company like Tesla. You need other people to help you to achieve those things. You can't do it by yourself, obviously. Exactly. And that's leadership, management, and all of that.
Yes. And this, you realizing that you have these skills, like, the leadership skills, was that what inspired you to, switch from being a retailer or being, working in the fashion, let's say the fashion industry, basically, and you're spending around 10,000 hours mastering the craft of coaching to finally become a coach? Was that the, motivation behind it, or what inspired you also to do that?
Yeah. So it wasn't so much the case of me being in retail and thinking, what else could I do? What else could I do? I don't really like the retail that much, which I didn't. To begin with, I was fine. Excuse me. For the first few years, I was fine. And then for the last few years, I was less fine, but I needed a job and I didn't have an idea as to what else I could do. It already became apparent to me by the age of 25, 26, that I'm not really an employable person, that I have a problem with not so much with authority per se, because it's not like I have a problem with all types of authority, but I definitely, I understood by then that I had a problem with authority that I didn't respect. And here is the thing, I'm not saying that retail managers and people in the leadership positions in retail are all dumb, because that's not true. I've met many great people. I still know some great people within the retail industry, right? But it's not NASA either, right?
True.
And I'm not saying I'm so smart, like I couldn't get a job at NASA, but I felt a little bit too smart for retail, if that makes sense, right? So where I'm going with this, I would find myself after I've mastered English, right? After I went from barely speaking any English to speaking the kind of English I speak right now, so like pretty fluent, right? Maybe I haven't mastered it. I will never probably master it because it's not my native tongue. But when my English became fluent, it became even more apparent that some of the people who were my managers or district managers, whatever, were bloody idiots. And those people, like, I understand that there are idiots and there will always be some idiots out there, but there's one thing for me to accept that somebody's an idiot, and there's completely other thing for me to take orders from someone I perceive to be an idiot, right? So that was problematic for me. And sure enough, I would start to clash big time with some people, right? But sure enough, I was already into personal development. So personal development wasn't something new to me. I was doing it for myself, working on myself. And then one day I had this epiphany that personal coaching is something that I want to do as a profession. And I basically transitioned from retail to coaching and started working for myself. So all the things that were problematic for me back in retail were no longer an issue, because I no longer had a boss. I no longer had to ask for permission whether I can finish early on Friday or something. I no longer had to ask permission whether I can take a holiday at a certain time. I became my own boss, basically, right? And I have been my own boss ever since. And that really suits my personality now, the idea of going back to employment. And I'm not saying that it is bad to be an employee, because it's not, right? I have an assistant, she works for me, she's my employee, right? So if I said being an employee sucks, that's like me saying that, you know, this girl is, it's like the stage she's at her life at 24, it's okay for her to work for me. Just like it was okay for me to work for somebody else at 24, right?
Yes.
And there are people who can be 44, 54, and they're more than happy having jobs. Because there are obviously perks of having a job versus working for yourself. One of them is the predictability of your income, which I don't have. I don't know how much money I'm going to make this month, or let alone next month. I can make £0. I can make £100,000. I don't know that, right? So for some people, that's very problematic. For me, that's okay. What's problematic for me was the lack of independence when I had a boss, right? And this was particularly visible when the boss I had at the time was someone I didn't respect, right? Which was half of the time.
And so it was good for you to, you know, get rid of, you know, those kind of people in your life and, you know, become who you truly are and what you are doing today also.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the bottom line. It's like whether we're talking about employment versus entrepreneurship, whether we're talking about being single versus being married, whether we're talking about having children or having no children, whether we're talking about living in one place your whole life or changing the location, the city every 2 years. Who am I to say which one is better? All I can say is what's best for me, right? And I can say what's best for me now because I'm 39 and I had basically 39 years to figure this out, right? I choose to work for myself and I will never work for anybody else. I choose to be single and I don't see myself getting married, having kids and all of that, is because it's just not who I am. Subject to change, right? We all change, and we might have a conversation 2 years from now, and I might tell you, Toby, this is my wife and this is my kid. Like, hold on a minute, didn't you say in April of 2022? They're like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids. People change.
True.
Right? So I really don't see myself doing anything else than coaching for the rest of my life. I really don't see myself living anywhere else other than London for the rest of my life. As it stands, I don't see myself getting married, having kids. But this one, out of all the things that I've mentioned, it's the most likely to maybe change one day. I don't know. Maybe when I'm 60, I'll have a kid. Okay. I tease my mother, because when I tell my mother that, she's like, "Oh my God, 60-year-old with a child, like a small child." She's Polish, obviously, like, you know, what I mean by that. Slightly conservative when it comes to like family. Like, it's normal, right? It's like normal.
Family oriented.
I don't think there's any country where a mother would be happy with her son having the first kid at the age of 60, right?
No.
but you know, so anyway, what I'm trying to say is that the number one thing you want to figure out in life is, what is it that you want, right? And I appreciate that takes time, and what can make this process accelerated, or what can speed up this process more than anything else that I know, is to have a coach who can help you to figure this out if you haven't figured this out yet. So that's number one. Number two, and you can't have the number two without the number one first, right, is to execute on it. So figuring out what is it that you want, who you want to become, etc., and then executing, asking yourself, what is it that I need to do in order to build that life for myself? But obviously, if you don't know, if you haven't figured out, if you didn't take the time and spend the energy to decide what is it that you want, how can you go about creating it? It's like trying to build a skyscraper before you talk to the architect and do the drawings and that part of the process. Right? Like, they would think you're mad. It's like, hold on a minute. Like, you talk to the builders, and the builder's like, okay, can we see the drawings? And I don't have any, but like, I want a skyscraper here. Okay, so you want a sky, but right? So the same in life is like, step one towards building the life that you want is to figure out what does it mean to you. Right? And then making sure that what you want to have, who you want to become, etc., is the product of your own conclusions as opposed to other people's conclusions. As much as I love my parents, if they had it their way, I'll be a miserable doctor or lawyer in Poland right now, because that was the idea for me. That's what they wanted for me. And there was a period where I wanted the same thing. I was in high school, and I thought, yeah, obviously I'm pretty smart, you know, and that's where I'm going. That's what I'm going. I'm going to be a lawyer, something like that, like a normal engineer. It's like a normal profession, right? Like a profession, right?
True.
But then along the way, I've realized that school wasn't for me, so I quit it at 17, as you know. My poor parents almost got heart attacks on the back of that. So that's you know, that was the one thing that wasn't cool about this whole thing. You know, the story in itself sounds pretty cool, but my poor parents suffered a lot because of that. But I took my time to figure out what is it that I want, and then I took my time to build a life that I wanted to build for myself. It did take me 34 years to figure everything out, right? So only for the last 5 years, I could say that my life has been the way I wanted it to be, right? So it took me 34 years to figure myself out. And the only reason, the way I see it, the only reason it only took me 34 years as opposed to 40, 50, or 60 is because I got into personal development at 23, which means that I had 11 years to work on myself, to learn about myself, to learn about life in a way which is bigger or faster than most people, because not only I was living my life and getting older, and through like life experience getting wiser, like organically, because I was reading the books I was reading, because I was listening to podcasts I was listening to, and going to events I was going to, that accelerated my process of figuring out what is it that I wanted and who I wanted to become.
Yes.
As a man, as a human being, and then as a coach, right? So in my profession. Yeah, you know, the way I see it, if I could do it, anybody can do it. Like if I could build a 10 out of 10 life for myself, right? And some people say like, you know, how could you call it a 10 out of 10 life? You are single with no kids. And I would say, yes, by design.
What suits you, basically.
Yes, like everybody who knows me would say that, yeah, if he wanted to find a wife and get kids, probably he would find at least one candidate, right? Because he's not shy, and you know, he can provide whatever, and he's you know, half decent, right? So it's 100% by design, right? But using that as an example, if you get married because you feel that pressure from your family, especially in certain cultures like Asian culture, this is the most apparent, I suppose. When you get married because your family wants you to get married, and then you find yourself miserable in a marriage, and like, what did you expect?
Yeah,
you followed other people's idea as to what's good for you. What did you expect? And then I would say to people, I would go a step further sometimes, and I would say, listen, especially if you follow your parents' idea as to how you should live your life, here's the problem. There's many problems with that, but here's one of the problems with that is, how old are your parents? And people would say, oh, let's say 60. Well, they're going to be around for another, let's say 20 years, right? And they're out. Whereas you are 30, let's say, you're going to have to live with the consequences of their ideas as to how you should live your life for the rest of your life, right? They won't even be around to listen to you complaining about the life that you built for yourself because you follow their advice, right? So as much as I love my parents, as much as if I could do it in a way, if I could live my life, my whole, now they are very happy, they have no reasons to complain, right? But when I was younger, if I could do it in a way that I would please myself, I would make myself happy and my parents happy at the same time, and every other human being on the planet at the same time, I would do it. Because I'm a people pleaser. Like, I want everybody to be happy, especially people I know, right? But given the choice between making myself happy and making my parents, who I love dearly, happy, I'm always going to choose myself. And they know it.
Yeah.
Having a choice of making myself happy or my girlfriend happy, as much as I love my girlfriend, I'm going to have to choose myself, right? You always want to choose yourself first. Now, when you have your own children, I know things change in your brain, especially if you're a woman, you know, and you are wired to prioritize
your kids,
the well-being of your child over your own. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't have the kids as we established myself. But the best of my understanding, things change a little bit when you have your own kids, right? But between you and your girlfriends, you and your boyfriends, you and your parents, you and your other family members, you and your friends, you and society as a whole, for God's sake, pick yourself. Like, choose you over other people. It's your life. Like, make it worth living for you. And I promise you this, with some exceptions, because some parents are so conservative that if you go too crazy, they'll never forgive you, whatever. I would still take the risk, right? But those are rare exceptions. More often than not, no matter how resistant your parents or partners or friends or society might be initially with your idea, if you pursue this idea, if you execute on this idea, whatever it is, you know, like a classic example of someone who comes from the family of lawyers or people work in the financial sector and they want to be an artist. And the parents would go, oh,
this could be
are you
difficult.
out of your mind? Like, do you want to be broke for the rest of your life? Is that what you want? You know, like, just be a lawyer. We have our family law firm. Just get a degree. Why would you painting? Are you out of your mind? Right? Are you out of your mind? Right? But then if you say, guys, I appreciate your concern. Let's don't forget the numbers, the number one job that parents have, right? That's the wiring, is our safety.
Yes.
Right? And this is important to remember. Our parents' number one job is our safety and security, not necessarily our fulfillment. Right? So they're just doing the job. I've never blamed my parents for anything. They were just doing the job.
Yeah.
They wanted for me what they felt was their job for me to have, right? So safety and security. That's why they had a freak out when I quit school at 17, because they thought, oh my God, what's going to happen with him?
True.
In Poland, without a degree, not a good situation, right? Not a good situation at all. So I understand where they were coming from. But I'm convinced, with some exceptions, like I said, that, coming back to my previous analogy, an artist, are you crazy? If you really commit to it, given that you have some talent, if you really commit to it, next thing you know, you make more money as an artist than your parents as lawyers or bankers. Because we all know that there are artists, visual artists, that make millions and millions and millions and millions for one piece of, right?
Yeah.
We have a street artist, Banksy, right? Street art, and he's, when there's a piece that you can buy, it sells for a lot of money, right? But I don't know his background, nobody does. But if his parents, he's a smart guy, so that wouldn't be impossible. He might as well be from a family of lawyers.
That's true.
And if he told his parents, if he's from a family of lawyers, and he told his parents at the age of 20 that he wants to be a street artist, they'll probably think that he lost it.
Yeah.
And they'll try everything, because that's their conditioning, right? That's the quote unquote job. They will try everything in their power to convince him to stop being a so-called dreamer, to get real. That's the kind of words and phrases that parents use sometimes, or society uses sometimes. Come on, be realistic.
Yeah.
Don't be a dreamer. Get real. You know, an artist, what are you talking about?
That's
or like when you say, I want to be a professional footballer, come on, you know, get a real job. There's so few people that become professional in any sports, like, and obviously lots of boys, especially, right? Girls as well, but boys especially. They, you know, they like to play football. They want to be a professional footballer. And if that's what your kid wants, you know, at least like support them at it. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And if not, don't, if, you know, if you're a parent, don't impose your views on your child. Like, let your child find themselves and consider supporting them in that pursuit, throughout that pursuit. Let them make the mistakes, let them figure out things for themselves, help them as much as you can along the way, but don't impose your, it's like super cliche things, like, you know, Chinese parents, like, you're gonna play piano, and the little girl is like, well, I don't like it. You're gonna play piano, you know, and you're gonna become very good at it, and then you end up 10 years later, you end up with a professional pianist, miserable. She knows how to play piano, but she's miserable because it's never been her idea to play piano. It was her parents' idea, right? And I'm not saying that all pianists or Chinese pianists are miserable, because there are some, you know, you hear the stories of like a 4-year-old, I think it was a documentary that I've seen about Pete Sampras, a former professional tennis player. And if I remember correctly, from the first time he saw a tennis racket, he was 4 years old, if I remember correctly. When he saw the tennis racket, when you just couldn't stop him playing. He was just so, at the age of 4, he knew that tennis was the thing for him. Yeah. So that's, and he wanted to spend every free hour that he had, every free bit of time that he had, playing tennis from the age of 4. So if that's the case, that's wonderful. But don't force your kids to play tennis just because You have failed. That's the worst story. Just because you have failed in your tennis career.
Yeah, no, that's
And
not
now you
good.
have a kid, boy or a girl, and you have failed. And now the kid doesn't even care about tennis that much, but you make them play tennis and practice tennis for 2 hours before school and 2 hours after school every day.
That's not good.
And it's like the school and the tennis, and there's no child. Where's the childhood? You know?
Yeah.
So that's like a parent-kid thing. But then what we are guilty of as adults is we allow the society as a whole to dictate our actions.
Yeah.
Right? The society tells you, hey, you should wear this, you shouldn't wear that, and this is how you should speak, this is how you shouldn't speak. Right? And now there's been a big progress on that front, but back in the day, the fashion brands would portray a certain image of, that's how a cool person looks, and that's how it doesn't, right? Whereas now it's the diversity. I mean, obviously we've made a lot of progress. We're not quite there yet, but we've made a lot of progress, like since I remember, since I was like a teenager. We made a lot of progress in terms of diversity, in terms of inclusion and all of that. And it's great to see that here in London when it comes to things like people being gay. There's 4%. I think the 4% of people on the planet are gay. But as you know, there are some countries where that's a dangerous thing to be, if you will, right? Which is insane, right? That you can be, when I think about that, you can be in trouble not with like some idiots in some freaking village, right? I'm talking about in trouble with like law because of your sexual orientation. It's insane for me to think that there are I know it exists, it happens. Whereas places like London, nobody cares. It's wonderful. It's everybody gets along with everybody. Everybody looks different, and everybody gets along with everybody. I actually live. I can see it through my windows. The gay area in London called Soho, and you have guys holding hands, kissing. Nobody gives a shit because it's like this is London. This is you do you. Whatever you are into. Not like that's fine, as long as you don't hurt anybody. So it's like one of those things where unless we as adults and especially people having children and people who work in education and in politics, unless we make everything okay, everything within reason, like okay or normal, then a child growing up might feel that and will feel that there's something wrong with them because they're not like all the other kids. They're open about them, about what they like, what they don't. That's different to other kids, right? And that's not good. Like if it was up to me, we would live in a world where everybody just gets along with everybody. It's not that freaking hard. It's harder for me personally. It's harder not to get along with someone than to get along with someone. Right? Why should I be affected by the fact, using my previous example, why as a straight man I would have a problem with two men liking each other that way? How is that affecting me? Why would I have a problem with that? Where is the logic, right? Whether it's homophobia, whether it's sexism, whether it's racism, things like that. Why? Why is it problematic to you that somebody, that somebody's trans, for example? It's like, why is that your problem? Where's the harm? Okay, this person they trans. Where's the harm? Are they hurting you? No. So why do you hate them for being trans? Yeah, because you're fucking stupid. That's why you hate them. Because you just haven't evolved. Because you have the intelligence of a dog, or I love dogs. So that's not a good. You have the intelligence of a cow. As far as I'm concerned, because you are so so close-minded, right? And I don't know much about cows, but like I don't think they're particularly open-minded. It's it's a simple animal, right? So I see people who are who are sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, I see them as just close-minded. It's like they just not evolved. They haven't caught up on the rest of us yet. It's like, guys, get on with the program. Like, we've moved on. It's 2022.
Yeah.
Like racism, sexism, homophobia, in 2022. Come on. Come on, guys. Yeah. Just get on with the program. Come on, let's move. Don't slow us down, right? As a society, don't slow us down.
Yes.
Just let people do them, be themselves.
Be themselves. That's true. That's a powerful message, actually. Yes. But before we continue, Michael, I would love to ask you a question, because you were talking about you being a people pleaser earlier, and you learned to put yourself first. That could be a challenging thing for a people pleaser. So how are you able to learn, how are you able to build up yourself to put yourself first while still being a people pleaser at some point?
Sure. Good question. And interesting enough, I told you before we started recording that I was having a session with my female client based in Netherlands, and we had the conversation about it, about the same thing that we're going to talk about now, because historically, we say in personal development that in life, we don't attract the people we want to attract. We attract people similar to us. So we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are, right?
Yes.
Me being a people pleaser myself and a nice guy myself, I've always been attracting a lot of nice people. And the very common characteristic of nice people is being a people pleaser, right? So because I am the way I am, that's the best way I can explain it anyway. Because I am the way I am, historically, majority of my clients would be nice, decent people who are people pleasers, right? And earlier today, I was telling this girl, my female client, I said, listen, I know it's hard, because to this day, after 16 years of personal development and thinking about things like that, after almost 10 and a half years of coaching, I still find it much easier to say yes to everyone and everything than no, right? Because it's my natural setting, if you will, to say yes, to agree to things, to please people, right?
Yes.
So then how do you combat that? But to your question, right? Like how can you put yourself first and be a people pleaser at the same time? Well, through discipline and then through practice. So even though you feel like agreeing to like, I remember dating this Korean girl ages ago, and she's been in London only for a few months, and she was studying something, and she asked me, Michael, can I ask you something? Sure. She said, when my colleagues at the university invite me to parties, like birthday parties, is it okay for me to say no? And I thought for a second that she was out of her mind. And then I reminded myself that she was Asian or Korean, right? And it's the cultural difference. That she wasn't actually stupid or insane. She was just Korean. She was Asian, and it's a different culture, right? So I didn't make fun of her. I just, found myself judging her, and I kind of called myself on it internally, and then just like, I say, of course you can say no. You don't do that in Korea? And she said, no, no, when the friend invites you somewhere, like, you have to go. Like, it's the cultural thing, right? I didn't say that to her, but I remember thinking to myself, mental note, never move to Korea. Right? I wouldn't do too well in Korea with my personality. They would kick me out, the day after I would arrive there, for not agreeing to everything. But so discipline. So you make a decision. Step one, you make a decision that you want to prioritize yourself. So unless you make that decision, then you don't have a strong base from which you can then build a strategy, right? And think to stay disciplined to. So it starts from making a decision. I found myself throughout my life being sometimes too agreeable saying yes to things I didn't want to say yes to, but I did it to please other people. And then slowly but surely throughout my life, I would get a grip and I would learn to control that side of me better. And instead of saying yes to things intuitively, right? Because that's what my intuition would like tell me, like say yes, like somebody wants something from you, say yes, like no. Because I've learned that sometimes you say yes to the wrong people and then it comes back and bites you in the ass. It's just not a good strategy, right? This is especially important for anyone who is either successful or planning to become successful, because guess what? The more successful you get, the more people want more things from you, especially your time, right? So if I was to have coffees, quote unquote coffees, with people who are getting into coaching or thinking about getting into coaching, all I would do would be drinking coffees with those people.
True.
Because I get asked throughout my career, ever since I've made it, let's say, not my whole career, but ever since I've made it as a coach, I've been bombarded with requests from coaches, like junior coaches or wannabe coaches, with requests of having a coffee so they can pick my brains, right? And ask me some questions for me to guide them, give them directions. And sure enough, at the beginning, I would say yes to those because I'm a nice guy, right? A people pleaser, as we established. But then it just became not sustainable. And then I arrived to an obvious conclusion. It's like, how is it fair that I expect my clients, who are sometimes coaches as well, right? Using that as an example, how is it fair that I charge those people for my advice and then I give my advice for free to those people just because they asked for it, right? So there was a point where I stopped having those coffees, and I didn't have a coffee with a wannabe coach for at least 6 years, right? It's like my time became like, for you to have my time, you're gonna have to give me a good reason. You're not gonna just get my time just because, like, you're not gonna get my time just because you want it. Like, you need to give me a good reason, right? So one of the two good reasons is like, you want to become a client, or you are a hot girl, hot to my definition of hotness, right? So which is obviously subjective. So those two types of people have the biggest chances of getting my time, right? Someone interested in working with me and approaching me in the right way, or a hot girl, basically, right? Everybody else, well, you have to figure this out. You have to really be creative, because I'm at the point in life where I am absolutely happy to be by myself, to like spend time by myself. I always have something to do, and I would far hold on, we're gonna need to record this because I got stuck there.
No problem.
Sorry. I'm at the point in life where I would much rather spend time by myself doing not much than spend it with the wrong person. Right? The person who doesn't give me something. When I say something, I don't mean money. It's not like, oh, this person can't make me money, I'm not interested. But there's got to be something, right? I have those 3 criteria I look at, right? It's like a checklist.
What are they?
For me to say yes to spending time with someone, that person has to tick one of the 3 boxes. Right? And if they don't tick any of those 3 boxes, there's no way I'm going to spend time with them. So in no particular order, can meeting this person lead to me making money? Yes or no? Can me meeting this person lead to me growing as a person? Yes or no? Can me meeting this person lead to me having a lot of fun? Yes or no? So if there's no fun, growth, or money involved, I'm not interested, right? If you don't bring to the table one of the 3 things, right? Some people bring more than one of the 3, but if you don't bring to the table at least one of those 3 things, I'm not gonna spend my time with you, right? And I became ruthless when it comes to that through self-discipline. right? So putting myself first,
yes,
right? As much as I'm a people pleaser still, and I would like for everybody to be happy, and I would like to make everybody happy, I've learned the obvious, which is that no matter who you are and what you do, you can't make everybody happy anyway.
no, you can't.
So you might as well prioritize yourself, start with yourself, try to make yourself happy. And then guess what? The happier you make yourself, the more happiness you can give to others, because you can't give what you don't have. It's like, I'm going to pick up a few homeless people from around my area, whatever, invite them to my house and cook some dinner for them, right? So you collect those people from the streets, right? They're so excited because they're like, okay, this guy's cool. He's going to feed us. We're hungry. It's cold. You open the fridge and there's nothing in it.
Oh, that's
right.
bad.
So the intention might be there, but there's no food in your house. How are you going to feed those people? And it's a little bit like that with happiness. If you want to make other people happy, the best thing you can do is to make yourself happy first. There's a reason why on the plane they always say, if you have a kid, put your own oxygen mask first. Because if you miss the point of getting, if you die, you're not going to be able to help your kid anyway.
That's true.
So if you die, your kid dies. Whereas if you are fast enough, you start with yourself, then you have enough oxygen, and then you can take care of your kids or somebody else for that matter, right? So there's a reason for it, right? So actually, one of the best things that you can do for other people is to take care of yourself and be, in a way, selfish, right? And maybe that's not the right word, because selfish implies like only like negative stuff, but like selfish in your pursuit of taking care of yourself first, so then you have more to give later. So that's what I did. Now I'm in a position to be generous with my time sometimes, with my resources sometimes. Like I'm in a position because I got to that point through all the hours I put into my work, right? But when I first started, I'm talking about coaching, right? When I first started, all I was doing was work. I wasn't supporting anyone financially. I wasn't giving any money to anyone, because I knew that whatever money I was making after paying the bills, I wanted and I needed to reinvest that money back in my business. So then I could eventually grow it to the level where now I can not only take care of myself with what I make, but also take care of all the people that I care about. Starting with my family, my girlfriends, etc. Right? So it took me a few years to get to that point, but the first few years was just head down, working my ass off. You wanted to have a drink with me? Forget about it. Like I wasn't drinking for 2.5 years. I wasn't partying for 2.5 years. I wasn't even dating for 2.5 years, right? Because I knew that if one thing that could distract me, that thing would be, if there's one thing that could distract me, it would be women. Right? And just chasing them, waiting for their replies and trying to see them again, missing them and all of that. So it was like, I need to cut that out so I can focus on the most important thing in front of me, which is growing this coaching practice. And once I grow it to a level that I will be satisfied with, then of course the dating is not going anywhere. It's not going out of fashion. Like, the women are not going anywhere. I can always come back to it. And that's exactly what I did.
Yes.
And when I came back, Toby, let me tell you, when I came back, I came back. In the first 12 months, I got, like, no exaggeration, not at least, I don't want to say at least, around 100 first dates in 1 year, all through Tinder and like similar apps. So I was like, okay, now is the time. So I have 2.5 years to make up for. Let's get swiping. Let's get swiping.
Wow. And I'm so glad that you took that time to work on yourself and work on your coaching business also, because now today you are successful with it, and you coach a lot of high achievers. And I'm so happy with what you say, like, self-discipline takes that self-discipline to dedicate yourself to this journey, to put yourself first in order to become a generous giver, even at the end of the day also. That's so wonderful. That's my key message from this episode.
And I'm not saying that, hey, just because you have, you should give. I'm not. as a general rule, I don't tell other people how they should spend their money, right? I'm not saying just because you are rich, you should be supporting charities. Just because you are rich, you should be. It's natural for me, like nobody had to tell me that. It's natural for me, but this is part of what I was talking about before. It's like, I'm doing me. And part of me has always been generous. It's just that when I was broke, I couldn't help financially anyone because I didn't have any money.
True.
Right? So I could express my generosity in other ways, but financial support wasn't one of them because I didn't have enough money myself, right?
Yeah.
So you know, when I hear sometimes, and it's just like an overall thing when it comes to criticism, when you find yourself being criticized, what you will always find is that it's always the person who's less successful than you that criticizes you, right? You don't hear Elon Musk criticizing Bill Gates or Bill Gates criticizing, whether they like each other or not. They kind of civil, because that at a certain level, it's usually the guy without any money who's gonna talk on social media about how Elon Musk should be giving more money to the charity. And when I see that, even though I know if I had Elon Musk's money, I wouldn't be spending it on trying to build a colony on Mars, which I think is a ridiculous idea and completely unnecessary, right? I know exactly what I would do with this money, right? In a context of like helping other people, right? But at the same time, when I see somebody voicing that opinion on social media with a tone of like, you should do this, you should do that, the only thing I'm thinking is not what I just said about Elon Musk, because that's like what I think, and that's, but like I said, it's Elon Musk's money. He's made this money. It's his money. When I see a post like that, or a comment like that from somebody, the first thing I'm thinking is like, hey, why don't you do what he's done, make the money that he's made, and then decide what to do with this money, instead of telling him what he should do with his money. Try to take as many risks as he did. First of all, try to become as smart as he. Obviously, like, you know, it's genetics partially, right? But first of all, you know, be as smart as he is. Then leave South Africa. You know, take the risks that he took. Work as many hours as he did. Be as creative as he is, and then we can have this conversation. And for now, here's an idea. Why don't you shut the fuck up? and don't tell Elon. And it's not like I'm a big fan of like a huge fan. I have a poster of Elon Musk somewhere on the wall. I don't. I respect him for what he's done, but it doesn't matter. It's his money, and it's not my place. And the way I see it's nobody's place to tell anybody how they should spend the money. Some people are more generous. Some people are less generous. I had some very wealthy clients who were extremely generous. I had some very wealthy clients who were less generous. Both groups were nice people. They were nice people. Some people are just like, it's like one of those characteristics. You know, some people have blue eyes, some people have green eyes. Some people are generous, some people are less generous. You know, it's like I happen to be on the generous side, and people around me have been benefiting from it for years, and the more I will be making, the more successful I'll be getting, the more it will benefit other people, right? But I'm not saying, hey, Elon Musk, look at me, this is what I do. So hey, you do you, Elon. If what you do is enough for you to sleep well at night, good for you. For me, it wouldn't be.
That's true.
Right? For me, it wouldn't be. Like, for me to like have the life that I have, and then seeing my parents struggling with the pensions in Poland. I just couldn't, you know, it sounds like dramatic, but like I couldn't live with myself knowing that I have the lifestyle that I have and my parents are struggling and worrying about money. It's just like unthinkable. It's unthinkable, right? And then the same for my like sister and her family, or like my girlfriends. Like, it's unthinkable. Like if I say I love you, if I say you are important to me, and then I have the resource that could be useful to you that you don't have or you don't have enough of, like why wouldn't I share it with you? If I say that I care about you, I'm not going around and give people money on the street. I'm not that kind of generous guy. Like there's different types, right? Like, hey, you know, oh, whoever stops me on the street, I'll give you all the money I have. You take my watch, take my, you know, it's focusing on the people in you know, in a close radius. To me, that's where I'm at right now. I don't know where I'm going to be 10 years from now. Maybe I will expand the beyond the radius I operate within right now, but this is what I am now at the age of 39.
Oh, that's good. And you said that you work with a lot of, you know, successful clients. You work with a lot of high achievers also. I feel like, you know, you said some of them are, you know, very generous and some are, you know, on the other side of the spectrum. But I feel like some common traits that you've seen in all of these people, all of these high achievers. What is common to all of them?
Sure. One thing that they all have in common, all the high achievers that I've ever worked with, they have this hunger that quote unquote average people don't have.
What's that?
Or quote unquote normal people don't have. They have this hunger. Now, and I can relate to that because I definitely would put myself in the same categories like high achievers, right? And I've always had, when I say always, as an adult, not as a child. As a child, I was just being a child. As a teenager, I was being a teenager. In my early teens, only in my mid to late teens that I learned that I am more hungry than most people, right? And it only became really apparent or really obvious to me in my 20s that I'm just hungry for success, not just financial success. Like I wanted financial success as well, but like just hungry for living my best life, hungry for becoming the best version of myself, right? And as much as I can look at my high achieving clients, not just the current ones, but like I look at the last decade or so, some of them were male, some of them were female. Some of them were young, some of them were old. Some of them were Caucasian, some of them were black, some of them were Asian, some of them were Arab, some of them were gay, some of them were highly intelligent, some of them were not so intelligent. Some of them were skinny, some of them were fat. Some of them believed in this God, some of them didn't believe in any God, right? So in terms of any of those things, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? Some of them were extremely well educated, and some of them were like me, completely not educated in a traditional sense, right? So none of those things matter, right? So anyone listening, if you think to yourself, oh, you know, I don't think I can be as successful as like maybe that guy or that girl because I'm too short, or I was born in a poor country, I came from a poor family, I was useless at school, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's the hunger that you have or you don't have. If you find that hunger within you towards something, so I was talking about my hunger towards creating an amazing life overall, but you know, when you find that hunger towards anything, that's all you need. That hunger plus time equals success, right? And obviously, because the time is part of the equation, right? You need to have a lot of hunger to sustain the amount of time that it's needed to become successful. I don't care how talented you are. I don't care how beautiful you are. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care. If you want to be successful at anything, it's going to take many, many, many hours, right? And then if you are someone who tries something for a year and then quits because you didn't become successful, I'm like, what did you expect? To become successful after 1 year? Right? And then you switch to something else, and then to something else, and to something else. Like it took me a year and a half to get a first date with my ex-girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
A year and a half to get a first date with someone. And you started a career, you didn't, or business, you didn't become a millionaire within a year, and you concluded that this wasn't a good idea, or you are not good enough. Come on. Things take time, right? Just like a tree, right, needs many, many years to reach its, like, full potential, if you will.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much rain there is in the country. Doesn't matter what you do with this seed and this little. It takes time, right? And obviously, the bigger the goal, the bigger the vision, the more time is going to be required in order for you to reach that goal, to reach that vision. Right? So find that hunger within you. If you want to be successful, again, none of my business if you don't. None of my business. Again, I don't go around and say, hey, you should want to be successful. Hey, you should want. It's none of my business. If you come to me for help, then it becomes my business, quite literally, because you pay me for me to help you. But other than that, if you're just a stranger, if you want to be a Uber driver for the rest of your life, if that's what you want. If you want to be a nurse, we bloody need nurses and we need Uber drivers. I have no problem with that. I have no problem. I don't think I'm better than you just because I might be making 10 times, 20 times more money than you, working 20% of the amount of hours that you do. I don't think I'm better than you. I chose my path. You chose your path. Just don't freaking tell me that the fact that you are an Uber driver, if you hate it, let's say, I don't think many Uber drivers love it, but just don't tell me that you've been an Uber driver for 10 years, you hate it, but you are an Uber driver because you are short, or because you are from a poor country, or because your mother didn't hug you enough when you were 5. Because I'm not buying it. You are an Uber driver because you choose to be an Uber driver every day, because you haven't made a commitment to do something else. And like I said, I have no problem with Uber drivers. Right? If that's what you want, just don't complain to me. If you don't like it, don't complain to me that you can't do anything else. You're stuck. Because I said, listen, we have to take responsibility, right? I take responsibility for being successful. I'm responsible for being successful. I've made myself who I am. I've built my life the way I wanted to build, right? And that's easy to say. It's much harder to admit to yourself, especially at 39. I suppose I'm responsible for the fact that I'm a loser. And I still live with my parents. And, I work at a supermarket, even though I'm smart and I could have a better job. That's much harder to do. It's easy to take responsibility when you've made it. Right? But hey, each to their own.
Yeah, that's true.
If we need people working in supermarkets, we need people driving Ubers, and we need nurses, right? Especially the nurses, right? Because they're gonna be hard to replace with like robots anytime soon. So I love the nurses. I support the nurses, but I support them to the point when they start complaining about being a nurse and how they don't get paid enough. So listen, you knew how much you're going to get paid before you became a nurse. Don't complain about your salary now, right? Who's stopping you to work on some side business over the weekends, right? If you work Monday to Friday, let's say, right? Who's stopping you from, I have 2 kids. I don't care. There's plenty of stories of women who have done 2 jobs, raised 3 kids after alcoholic husband left them, and they still started a business and become multimillionaires.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
If we look for stories like that, we're gonna find them in every country, right? Across any part of history, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's a very simple conclusion that I arrived to when I look at something like that. If one person could do it, I can do it.
Yes.
If she could do it, I can do it. If you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. So now that we have the hunger and we are working towards our goals and we achieve that goal. So how would you advise us to, stay at the top of our industry when we've gotten to that point in life?
Sure. So it's down to that hunger. Like, it's one thing to get to the top, and then in order to stay on the top, you got to sustain that hunger, right? For me, it is unimaginable. Excuse me. For me, it's unimaginable. Let me say that again. For me, it's unimaginable to let anyone do better than me in the field of personal coaching here in the UK. I would never let that happen. Like, because I'm competitive by nature, right? So if I was an athlete, I would have to win gold medals. Like, that would be my goal, right?
Yes.
If I was a tennis player, I would have to win the major tournaments, because that's in my nature, right? So I know for a fact I don't have a strong competition in the UK. I have some strong competition in the US, but I don't really see them as direct competition because they're in the US and I'm here. And not all of my clients, but most of my clients have a preference for face-to-face coaching anyway. They're not going to go to see the coach in LA every week or every 2 weeks. Just not sustainable, right? So, but at the same time, I recognize that if I had to do more, I don't, as it stands. If I had to do more to do better than I'm doing right now, I would find a way to do better, right? If there was like, okay, there's this new kid on the block and he or she is just smashing it, and Michael, she's going after you, or he's going after you. I would need to think long and hard as to what I need to do, because like that's like in my head. I know this might sound silly to something like, why do you care so much? I can't tell you why, because I don't know. I just have that inbuilt need to be the best at what I do here in the UK to begin with, right? Like, I just had that thing, like it's almost like obsession of like, what is it that I need to do? How do I need to do it? What kind of results? Because at the end of the day, my line of work is about the results you get for your clients. What kind of results I need to get for my clients to get to that top of my industry, to be able to charge the fees that I charge right now, and for people to be happy to pay it, right? Because I don't use any sophisticated selling techniques. I don't think I use any selling techniques, let alone sophisticated ones. I meet people for initial consultations. We have a chat. It's like a chat. I said chat because there is a chat. There's no formal process that we go through. I take them through anything like that. I just meet those people. We hang out for a few hours, and then at the end we decide what we want to do. Right? That's my process. Right? There's no selling really. There's just conversation. Right? Sometimes the people I meet are better fit than some other times, and the ones that fit me and I fit them, we get to dance, right? And the ones that don't fit, we don't get to dance, and that's okay too, right?
Yes. So what I'm understanding now is like, whenever we get to the top already, or when we get to the top, we just have to keep on having that hunger in us, keep on working on ourselves, improving on our skills, and becoming a much more better person, because we are basically work in progress. And no matter what stage of level we are in life, we still have to just keep on putting the work into ourselves.
Oh, absolutely, because I've mentioned like tennis players before. It's like, Roger Federer. Like, I remember reading somewhere he was like at his peak. So I know he's like not number one anymore. He's a little bit too old for that, so he's like retiring and all of that. But even at his peak, he would practice 4 to 6 hours a day. You would think, or no, you wouldn't, I wouldn't, but somebody could think, surely after winning like 10 Grand Slams, 15 Grand, you can just chill a little bit, like you're the champion. Like everybody's in awe of you. But he understood the obvious, which is there's one thing to get to the top, another thing is to stay there. So in order to stay there, you gotta sharpen your pencils every day. You gotta stay in shape, right? You gotta be aware of your competition. Who's your competition, right? Who are those people? What do you need to do to make sure that they don't take you over, right? And become better than you. So in sports it's easier because you have tournaments, points, and all of that. In industries like mine, or like in legal profession, you know, who's the best lawyer in the UK? It's hard to tell. Like there's a, you know, like maybe within the law industry they know exactly who that person is. But it's sometimes like with artists, like who's the best artist? Like who's the best music artist on the planet today? How do you answer that question? Right. So one thing you can look at is who sells the most records. And then you could say, well, maybe that artist is not necessarily the best because that's subjective, but you can say maybe that artist is the most successful artist on the planet right now based on the sales of the records.
Yeah.
And I don't know who that is. I think in the UK it's either Adele or Ed Sheeran, one of those two. I don't know who is that person globally, but it's easier for competitive people. Sport is a perfect environment because everything is very easy to measure. When you have 10 guys running 100-meter sprint, even a child can tell who's the winner because you just see who crosses the line first, right?
Exactly.
It's not like, well, yes, it's a bit subjective. No, it's not subjective. Or like when you have two football teams playing, it's like who's won? Well, it's usually the team that has scored more goals. It's very easy to determine, right?
Yeah.
At any point, what's the best football club and the best country when it comes to football? When it comes to professions like mine, it's a bit tricky. I wish there were like, it's never going to happen, but like, I wish there were like tournaments for coaches where I could go and prove my dominant, like my superiority. But like, but it's like, you know, as I'm saying that, I'm recognizing that's so silly because why do I care? Like, who cares?
You don't have to prove anything.
No, like who cares? But it's that it's part of my DNA, right? And I just happen to become a coach, but I know that I'll be thinking about any profession I'll be in if I wasn't in this profession.
That's true.
So it's not about like, oh, since I became a coach, I started to think along those lines. No, it's just who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And I have this competitive nature. And here's the thing, somebody said that there are two ways to end up having or owning the highest skyscraper in town. One is to build the highest skyscraper in town, and the other one is to demolish other people's skyscrapers. Right?
Yes.
So without a doubt, I'm clear on one thing, is that in my case, I've never been interested in getting to the top by following the second scenario, by trying to make other coaches look bad, or like I do criticize some coaches, but that's not because I want to make myself look better. It's just like if I do criticize some coaches occasionally, is because they give me a reason for it, right? Which is other than, you know, me trying to look better than them.
Yeah.
And sure enough, if you play your cards right, and if you're a decent human being, you don't want to, and you don't need to demolish other people's skyscrapers. You just build the highest skyscraper.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
you are quite literally, if you are a property developer, if you're really that ambitious, you can end up owning the highest skyscraper in town. Right? You don't need to demolish anybody else's. Just look at what's the tallest. Okay, with 75 stories. Okay, so let's find a way to build the one that's 76, and that's it, done. Right? You don't need to, like, you keep the 75-story one the way it is intact. You just build a taller one, and then nobody gets hurt, and you still win.
That's
right?
True.
And the guy who had the highest, now he or she, could be a woman, obviously. Now he or she is maybe a little bit upset, but then guess what? If it's really important for them, they can go, okay, we had a 75-story building. This guy built 76. We're gonna build 77 now.
Yeah.
So there's right. So there's always a way.
Yeah. And just keep on growing.
Yeah, you know, there's the saying, where there is a will, there's a way.
Yes, that's true.
If you are hungry enough for something, you will find a way to get it.
True.
You will push yourself through all the challenges, all the obstacles, all the problems that you're going to face. You're going to push through it. Mm-hmm. And it's that hunger that I was talking about, that we were talking about, that's going to ultimately allow you to do what's needed to be done in order to get what you want. That hunger more than anything else, more than intelligence, more than looks, more than connections. When people say, oh, to be successful, you need to know people, it is such a nonsense statement. It's such a bullshit. You don't need to know anybody. I didn't know anybody. Like, I didn't know anybody when I became a coach, anybody who could help my career. I started small, extremely small, below the UK's average in terms of my fees, charging £20 per session, and slowly but surely,
building up.
Year after year, year after year, for 10 and a half years now, I've been getting, I've been adding, so I built the foundation, ground floor, and then I've been adding floors, first floor, second floor. So now I'm like, whatever, but I'm still building my skyscraper. Yeah. I'm far from being done. Yeah, I'm far from being done. Yes, it's a good looking skyscraper. I acknowledge that. I appreciate that. But I'm nowhere near. I haven't put a roof yet. Yeah. It's still under construction, and it will remain under construction for the rest of my life.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Michael. Just keep on building the skyscraper, and remain the best and stay on top all the time. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that might have been my most poetic in a long time. Like the last thing. This is the first time But that's how I feel about it. It's not. And you see, I could extend that analogy beyond my coaching practice and what I do, and I could extend that to me working myself as a man as something that it's always gonna be under construction. Yeah, it's never gonna, okay,
it's never done.
Because you see, I'm not a religious man, but my best guess is that Jesus, Buddha, Mohammed, there hasn't been a point where any of them went, I'm so enlightened, I can't possibly be any more enlightened. I know all the answers, right? I would imagine that even those people would say, I'm still work in progress.
We are work in progress.
I'm in a good place. We are always, all of us, work in progress. Yes. Some of us are more advanced than the others, right? And I know I'm pretty advanced because I spent 16 years on it, right? That's the only reason I'm so advanced, not because I'm 39, but because I spent 16 years out of those 39 years working on myself, right? So consciously looking at myself in the mirror, not literally, although literally I do that quite a lot as well. Looking at myself in the mirror and trying to find ways in which I could improve myself. Right? So looking at different areas of my life and constantly, and I still do it, and I will always be doing it, right? And that's work in progress for sure, and that's harder than the coaching business because that's just one thing. Whereas if you look at yourself as a man, in our case, or as a human being, that's so much more complex than just like running a business. There's more elements, so there's more things to look at and consider and pay attention to. So it becomes therefore bigger of a challenge.
Yeah, you're right. Wow. Michael, I've learned so much from you and from this conversation. Like, I'm just like, it's so insightful, listening to your story and, going through everything that you've gone through and just picking a lot of life lessons from it, basically. And I'm sure there are people out there who still have a lot of questions to ask or who love to engage with your coaching service also. So what's the best way to connect with you? What's the best way to work with you? What's the best way to reach across to you to, become a member of your coaching team?
So very simple, myname.com. And then when you're there, you can learn more about me, my coaching style, and also from there you can go to different social media platforms, on which I am present. I'm a Facebook generation, so I'm the most active on Facebook.
Okay.
I know that Gen Z, like I don't know anyone under 30. I know one person. There's only one person under the age of 30 that I know who's on Facebook. Everybody else, because it's like, it used to be younger people there, but now as soon as the parents of those people started joining Facebook, those people started leaving. Because like Facebook is not cool anymore, right? but I'm a Facebook generation. I like my Facebook. So like Facebook, Instagram. So there's whole bunch of different interviews that I've done over the years, and talks that I've given on my YouTube channel as well, and that can be found on my website as well. A link to my book is there as well. But yeah, michaelserwa.com is the place to go to, because from there you can find everything else as well.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to place the link in the show notes of this episode. So I encourage everyone who is listening to just click on it, copy the link, and get across to Michael. I mean, from this conversation that we've had, it's so much filled with a lot of impactful words, so much motivational, inspirational words, and I can't imagine what your coaching service also will entail. It will entail much more. It's worth the thousands of dollars that that you charge for it. Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate this. That's awesome.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.